Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are across this world. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the BIA, or Bureau of Indian Affairs. And one of the things that, as a scholar who studies Native American culture, and also a person that a lot of my work in my thesis centered on the COVID and the effects on the reservation, was we have the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is located in Washington, D.C., yet the majority, I would say 75% of maybe even 80% of the reservations exist west of the Mississippi. And I often think, why is this the case that the Bureau of Indian Affairs exists in Washington, yet the majority of the reservations exist west of the Mississippi? And the first thought that comes to my mind on this is, wouldn't it be easier to move the Bureau of Indian Affairs somewhere in that vicinity? Couple areas that I often think about. Well, one is El Paso, Texas, and both areas are in Texas too. Because the fact of the matter is, I feel that Texas would be a good place because it's more, even there are reservations east of the Mississippi, it would be more centralized in Texas. Oklahoma would be another area as well, which would consider Oklahoma City would be another choice too. But one would be El Paso, the other one would be Austin, Texas, and my third choice would be Oklahoma City, because I feel all three of those cities would be more inclined for the reservations other than Washington, D.C. And the other issue I see out of that is the fact that it's more centralized than coming, to the east, because there's a phrase that I also, as a IO psychologist, it's called a disconnect, a mental disconnect. And what I mean by mental disconnect is we disconnect because we're not in tune, or we're not into that area. For instance, when we think about the past, especially when the formation of the reservations, this was always to include westward movement. Part of it was, like I said, we first look at this is in the 1830s with the Indian Removal Act, Trails of Tears moving west of the Mississippi. But we also look at this in the sense that this is where it was not necessarily the concern was, we're trying to manifest destiny, go all the way from coast to coast. So the mentality of and I have to say white elites, was just to get them off the lands, of fertile lands, and we'll deal with this down the road. In essence, it's the old cliche, as I always like to say, kick the can down the road. And the federal government is in my opinion always the philosophy is, let's just kick the can down the road and we'll deal with it later on down the road. Case in point, it also happens at the local level as well. Case in point is, we got here in Cincinnati, we got the suspension bridge that was developed over I-75, and it was formed or built in the 1960s. We're into the 2020s, and they still have not yet come up with a new bridge yet. Though they're having hearings at the end of February about the bridge, we're still like kicking the can, the cliche, down the road, and hope that nothing happens to the bridge, because if something would happen to the bridge, then chaos would develop, because that's the interstate goes from Michigan all the way down to Florida. So this would cause some traffic snarls for a short period of time. So in essence, what we're talking about here is that we, like the government likes to kick the can down the road. And the other issue, and I see this in a book called Tip O'Neill, All Politics is Local, which is an excellent book, is that we have a tendency in the federal government is to create more jobs or than to really empower individuals to be more in tune, and especially Native Americans, because really when we look at the output or the what are we getting for the ROI, the return on investment, we still have high drug use, we still have high crime, we have social issues, as well as medical issues on these tribes. And like I said, a high dropout rate in high school and college. So even though the government is sticking money into this, we're not getting what I call the ROI, or the return on investment, on this. So what we're doing here is we're creating not a solution, but more of an additional problems. And my big theory or my rationale is all decisions should be made by the reservations or the leaders on that reservation, and not necessarily by the federal government. And I really honestly think that if we move the BIA, or Bureau of Indian Affairs, to more of a centralized location as well, it creates not this essence of not the federal government involved with it, but this emphasis as well that we're looking out for the well-being and the understanding and the growth of Native American culture. And granted that there's been some strides made over the years over this, but we're looking well into the 20th, 21st century, 22nd century, and I've discerned a lot about this, and it's like what I've read, what I've written about, talked with Native American people about as well, is that there's this mistrust with the federal government. So why even keep it there? With disconnect from the Washington D.C. and move it and just call it the Bureau of Indian Affairs. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Washington D.C., but actually create a separate identity for itself. And I mean, they've got all these regional offices too, and there's an issue with that in itself. And this is not the video concerning that. And later down, I'll talk about the regional offices. But the issue here for me is, do we really need the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Washington, D.C., which is on the East Coast? Or would it be more impactful to separate from the federal government and say, yeah, we'll move this in Texas or Oklahoma, and then move forward with this? Because I think this would streamline also the BIA and get rid of a lot of administrative costs and take those costs in some form and all, because really administrative cost is always the biggest issue in anything. If you form a nonprofit organization, for example, but the majority of your cost, anywhere from 70-80%, are administrative cost, and really that trickles down to you're not being efficient in helping other people. So if you're taking the time to move the BIA somewhere where it can be have a more impact, like I said, in Texas, and the reason that I think that would help is it would help give that impression, and it would show the idea that the government wants to separate that and improve the relationship with Native tribes, especially west of west in the Mississippi, where a lot of these are isolated tribes. Issues on water quality, which I've wrote a book on water quality on the reservation, and also the casino issue, which at some time in the later future I will deal with that as well. But the point that I'm trying to make about this is the mindset that we need to create that shows that there's not that the government is interested in the government. And essentially, though I understand what Biden has done with putting a Navajo leader in charge of the BIA or Interior Department, it's a symbolic symbol, but not necessarily. It hasn't really created any change in itself. It's changed for the Navajo. Maybe it gives them more self-recognition, but there's a lot more tribes other than Navajo that exist west of the Mississippi. And there again, what is the intent? Is the intent to just boost up people, or is it the intent to improve the lives of people? And my guess is that there really hasn't been that much change under the Biden administration, and that there's some shortcomings coming out of that. So that is an issue that I think needs to be addressed as well. And there again, that is an issue. Even though the issues are there, I really think the BIA and the issue of the reservations are not being really seriously addressed, or just being whitewashed with Native Americans. And that's where I felt when I was doing some reading on finished water quality, interviewing other tribal members, that I have a voice. I got a PhD in psychology, and that the voice needs to be brought forward in discussion, especially when we're looking at what I call this issue about being more empowering Native American people. So anyway, these are my food for thoughts about this. Please like and subscribe to my channel. And I also have books available on Amazon. They're under Boy Thomas Miller and also B. Thomas Miller. If you have any comments, feel free to reach out to me at bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. That's bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. Also, I do have another channel as well called Positive Vibes that I talk about self-esteem, motivation. So anyway, folks, have a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye.